So it would be nice to think that this doesn't matter for those of us sitting in Europe, but actually the entire valuation of our industry is underpinned by the drug prices in the US. And it's easy to sort of think about this from a commercial perspective, but that commercial perspective and the total sales that you're expecting to get for every product is what feeds into the valuation of your biotech company. So this change in pricing in the US has a knock-on effect for biotech companies and investors globally. So there is some commentary out there, whilst we don't know the actual discounts that are going to be granted yet, there's some commentary around that the discounts are expected to reduce small molecules' lifetime revenue by 5 to 6% and biologics by 3 to 4%. That doesn't sound too scary, but that is an average and really doesn't stack up when you think about it on a program-by-program basis. So if you take an example, firstly thinking about the average time on the market before the patent cliff for drugs, which is generally what we'd include in the valuation of a company, is 10 to 14 years today. So there's no distinction currently between small molecule and biologic. It's really about how fast people can get to market versus their patent life. Taking an average of this as 12 years, for a small molecule, you're now losing 3 of those 12 years, which is a quarter of the value of your molecule if you were affected by the IRA. The other important point to think about is we've changed the way that we develop drugs in the last 20 years from sort of transferring the risk quite late and going after the largest and broadest indications possible with the potential risk of failing late on in development and kind of losing everything, to more of what we would describe as a tip of the spear model, whereby you might prove out efficacy in a smaller indication and then get sequential approval for indications following that. Now, if that's no longer the case, you might be in a situation where, okay, your first program has lost a quarter of its value. Say that the second indication you were going after with the same molecule was 2 years behind it. That one then only has 7 years on the market, etc., etc. So if you think about some of the largest deals that we've seen in history, Pharma is a great example, where there's been this pipeline and a pill that's really driven the value of the acquisitions, and that was over 20 billion. We're not going to see that under this legislation for anything that comes under Medicare. So biotechs are valued on total sales. Total sales have changed dramatically. This is an utterly different return profile versus when these companies were set up. So if you think about, venture capital setting up companies, a 3 to 5 year discovery window, and then those companies are coming into development now. This is all new. We haven't seen massive write-downs in venture capital portfolios yet, which seems a little odd when you think about it in that context. And so to be sitting here in Europe thinking that this doesn't matter is just wrong. And I think this is a classic case of where the change is almost too big for people's thinking to adapt in real time. And maybe putting it in animal terms, it's a bit of a story of horses and ostriches. So the horse has bolted, it has left the stable, it's not coming back. But it feels a little bit like the industry is collectively putting its head in the sand like an ostrich, particularly outside the US.